Well, good morning, everyone. Glad you're here. Glad you made it through security if you came here. And for those of you online, we're going to go ahead and just start with introductions. And let's see it. Scott, I guess we'll start with you over here.
Good morning, everybody. Scott Pasternak, representing the general public with Burns & McDonnell.
Cheryl Murga, Houston Galveston Area Council, representing the planning region.
Dave Yankee, representing the financial community with New Gen Strategy Solutions.
I'm Chuck Rivette with Waste Management of Texas. I represent a solid waste professional with experience managing or operating a commercial solid waste landfill.
Morning, Jeff Mayfield, North Texas Municipal Water District. I represent a public solid waste district or authority.
Good morning. Judge David Dillard, Concho County Judge, represent counties.
Charlie Fritz, Deputy Director of the Waste Permits Division.
Megan Henson, Section Manager of MSW Permits.
Anedas, MSW Special Tech. Technical Specialist. And I will do the role for anybody that is online. First, Scott Trevis. Risa Weinberger.
I'm Risa Weinberger, and I'm representing composters and environmental educators.
Thank you. Richard Brockwitz.
I'm here and I'm representing the general public.
Steve Shannon.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
You can.
Good morning, everyone. Steve Shannon with State of Texas Alliance for Recycling. I represent a public recycling organization.
Frank Pugsley.
Good morning, Frank Pugsley with Park Hill, and I represent a professional engineer in private practice with experience in permitting and design of facilities.
Jennifer Lutz. Judge Haynes. Rob Gutierrez. And Clifton Lively. I will check again later on in the meeting. Next, we'll introduce everyone in the phone.
Yeah, please.
Did somebody just join a council member? Yep. Hit star 6 if you're a council member that joined through the phone. Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Who's speaking, please?
Yes, this is Clifton Brock Lively. I represent an official from municipality or county solid waste agency. I'm with the city of Plainview.
Thank you. Next, we will introduce everybody in the room. I do have Madison Howard and Savannah Rains behind me, and then we'll go to the audience next. We'll start with Jarita.
Hi, I'm Jarita Sepulvedo. I'm the Waste Permits Division role liaison.
Hi, I'm Danielle Lessiker. I'm Assistant Deputy Director for Waste Permit.
I'm Clint Hart. I'm with Texas Disposal System. I'm Brian Christian. I'm a consultant.
Hans Robinson, moderator.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad everybody was able to make it here. And again, this is our Municipal Solid Waste Management and Resource Recovery Advisory Council meeting for Thursday, April 11th. So I'm glad everyone's here. And with that, Charlie, I'll turn it over to you for the Waste Permits Division update.
Yes. So kind of a short list today, although one topic is going to be a little bit longer. First, one of the sunset things, again, we're rolling on implementing 2 of our sunset and 3 of our sunset implementations. Dorita will talk about the rules Megan will talk about the webpage update. The one that's kind of moving a little bit slower, but we're still working on it, is what we call the temporary permits. So this will only impact the recyclers. It's just going to be that yearly update or kind of submitting a quick form saying the recycler is still operational. So we are working on the electronic system for the recyclers to log into Steers. It's going to be in Steers. Most MSW facilities know about Steers because that's the annual reporting system. And the recyclers will just need to log in and say they are operational. So we're setting it up to be pretty simple. We're rolling on that. So probably summer, you'll start to see announcements that if you want to sign up for reminders, you can join. You can sign up. Oh, it's for tires as well. Sorry, I forgot. MSW recyclers and certain tire facilities will have to do this registration annually. And so in summer, we'll start announcing it. And then by the end of the year will be that first submittal of whether or not you're operational. The second topic I want to discuss, we were asked about PFAS and what's going on with PFAS. I'll give just a high level overview of the couple things going on with EPA right now. And then from there, we can definitely, a lot of the PFAS stuff is happening in the industrial and hazardous waste section. So we have a very good resource that can talk all day long about this. And it's just the timing didn't work out for this meeting. So we can schedule a separate meeting and have anybody from your groups attend, or we can present at the next MSWRRAC meeting on PFAS specifically and kind of walk through more in depth of these proposed rulemakings. But for right now, I have a high level overview. EPA did have two proposed rulemakings out there. The two that were tied together, the first one added 9 PFAS substances to the list of hazardous constituents. This, again, it's hazardous constituents, not hazardous waste. So this impacts RCRA hazardous waste facilities when they go into corrective action. So it's not, so normal operating TSDFs that aren't in corrective action aren't impacted by this, but when they go into corrective action, they'll have to identify, that's when they get into identifying hazardous constituents. And so that's when, if the rulemaking goes through, that's where the PFAS would then come into play, is when they go into corrective action, have to do an assessment, have to identify hazardous constituents, and then do that further investigation. So it's not, the EPA proposed rule is not impacting, is not adding it to hazardous waste, it's adding it to hazardous constituents. And EPA explicitly said in this proposed rulemaking that MSW landfills are not impacted by this proposed rulemaking unless they also operate as a hazardous waste landfill or hazardous waste facility that goes into corrective action. So EPA explicitly said MSW landfills are not impacted by that rulemaking. The second rulemaking that came out at the same time was a change, or is proposing a change to the definition of hazardous waste, applicable again to corrective action. So these two proposed rulemakings were very tied together. One added the PFAS to proposing to add the PFAS to hazardous constituents. The second one about the definition of hazardous waste revised the definition, again, related to corrective action, to allow for, I'll just have to read it because it's difficult to explain. It's kind of a regulatory change to allow more seamless corrective action activities. So let's see, try and find my note. EPA expects that the proposed rule would facilitate corrective action to address substances that meet the statutory definition of hazardous waste, but are not regulatory hazardous waste, by providing clear regulatory authority, and would thereby minimize the likelihood of challenges to corrective action requirements. So that's what that second rulemaking, proposed rulemaking regarding the definition of hazardous waste related to corrective action is doing.
Can I ask a quick question? I think I heard you say statutory, not regulatory. So what's the difference?
That was probably when did I say it?
Just read it.
Okay, so EPA expects,
Maybe I heard.
yeah, we can definitely add it to the list of questions.
Yeah.
So again, it's just looking at, so again, the clear regulatory authority to fully implement RCRA statutory requirements. So I guess there was either challenges on the EPA side when dealing with hazardous constituents versus hazardous waste and corrective action cleanups. So trying to clarify how far the evaluation of the facility has to go and which constituents to look for.
David, at the risk of being 100% wrong, I had the same question, and this is the way it was somewhat explained to me, is that regulatory constituents, regulatory hazardous waste are listed waste identified that when the generator generates a waste stream, they have to either identify those wastes or test for those wastes. And this would not add the PFAS, but the list of those materials that they would test for disposal.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right, but it still becomes very confusing. It's still a regulatory waste, as Charlie said. In the event you're doing a cleanup, then you have to clean up those constituents because they are.
So if I'm hearing it, and again, the lawyers are going to have a field day on this, but so you don't, if you're receiving it at a waste management landfill, they don't have to report it to you. But if you get hits on it, then statutorily you've triggered it. Regulatory, they don't have to report, bring it in. But if it triggers in some testing you do at waste management afterwards, statutorily you're triggered.
I have no idea. No one knows how this is going.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is once you're in corrective action, then you have to start sampling for it.
Yeah.
So it's not, my understanding is it's not, and again, we can do a much more in-depth presentation that it's not going to be added to the groundwater monitoring requirements for regular hazardous waste facilities until they enter corrective action. Then you have, because again, once generally how it goes is as you progress from detection, assessment, monitoring to corrective action, your list of substances that you have to monitor for expands. And so if you get into corrective action, then that list becomes longer.
Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt you and hijack your, I'll let you finish because I do have a couple other questions.
So those were the two proposed rulemakings. The comment period has closed on those. There's one additional item EPA is looking at right now is they have what's an interim guidance on destroying and disposing of certain PFAS substances and PFAS containing materials. So that they updated it and they released it, I believe, this week or last week. And there's a 180-day comment period. Basically, what this guidance is just kind of all available information on destruction and disposal of PFAS. And then also kind of provides a framework or guidance on evaluating emerging technologies. So this discussed the three main disposal method this guidance discusses is thermal destruction, hazardous waste landfills, and underground injection. So every couple of years, right now it looks like the previous update was 2020. EPA updates this guidance and then puts it out for comment. So there's a 180-day comment period with this guidance. If y'all want to look at it, and there's an opportunity to provide comments on it. So with it being so new, we have not had a chance to look at this one yet, but it's on our list to go through it and look at it. That's all I had.
I got it.
Yeah, I'm going to open it up for questions, Chuck.
And I know this is really, really new, but the EPA just passed a ruling this week having to do with wastewater treatment plants. And I realize we're not the Water Treatment Services Advisory Board, but one of the big issues with wastewater treatment plants is the PFAS that gets into the sludge. And municipal solid waste landfills is a prime in place along with crop fields. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to say other than just as a reminder to the disposal industry that there is a terrible freight train coming down the track on this.
Okay. I think what you're referencing, you're talking about the water treatment rules that got finalized yesterday.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So what's interesting about that is the EPA still has not released anything related to wastewater or landfills for that matter. But we all know the drinking water goes down the drain and ends up in the wastewater treatment plant. And often that sludge biosolids ends up in the landfill, and then there's leachate, and then that goes to the wastewater treatment plant, and then that gets discharged out into the source waters, and then they got to fight that on the headworks of the water treatment plant. So at some point, supposedly there'll be some rules out on the wastewater side, and who knows what will come out on the landfill side. It may be none. It may just be water. I really don't know.
Well, the odd conundrum, and we're seeing this in other states, is wastewater treatment plants refusing to accept landfill leachate because of the potential for PFAS. And so that creates a potential cycle to where the landfills say, well, we can't take your wastewater treatment plant sludge then because you're such a source. And I don't know. It's a hard public policy circle in a lot of ways.
This is Risa. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to say very briefly that everything that was just said, excuse me.
Risa, are you there?
I've got my audio on the phone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Everything that was just said regarding landfills taking wastewater sludge with PFAS equally applies to composters that compost biosolids. So
Lost you again, Risa. Okay.
I think we got our point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the one comment. So, in reading some of the things that came out this week. So, and if I read it wrong, so they said subtitle D landfills were exempt. Correct? Did I get that right or not?
They're not even. So the proposed rulemaking for the PFAS, adding the 9 PFAS substances to the hazardous constituents. I'll put it high level just in case there's attorneys listening. It's impacting hazardous waste. So it's records subtitles.
Yeah. Well,
those that go into corrective action.
Yeah. And so everybody said this, but I just, Chuck's coming and looking at it from the solid waste side. Jeff comes from North Texas Municipal Water District. They're in the water, wastewater, and solid waste business. And I deal with clients in all three. And it's just like Chuck said, all we're saying is there is a freight train coming here with this because we've got it's so circular. You can't, people don't want the biosolids. Biosolids have been a challenge for a number of years at landfills and now land application and all that. So you got an issue with those. And then the big concern also is the leachate. We've got 2 clients that take theirs to wastewater treatment, well, more, but 2 that have triggered a do we want to take this anymore issue. And one that is outside the state of Texas, so you don't have to worry about it, but they're in remediation. So they've got groundwater issues. So they have a lot of leachate that they're dealing with and other that's going to a wastewater treatment plant. And if this gets triggered, what are they going to do with it? I don't know. That's just my concern. It's going to hit all three of these basic utilities. I know you know that already.
Yeah.
But
it's definitely an issue that is being, especially because right now we're still very much in it's almost policy decisions, which is at the exec and commissioners level. So we're still figuring out. And so any input is always welcome on the inputs, on the impacts and how to proceed, because we're still figuring out what to do as well. And and we understand that it's going to be there's going to be cascading impacts. And so we're looking at both EPA for guide. I mean, a lot of how the RCRA waste world works is EPA does it and we implement it. But if we know the impacts, it definitely helps us work with EPA. So it's difficult for us to comment on a lot of these because we can't necessarily say all the impacts that actually happen to facilities. We look at our rules and determine what the impacts are, try to kind of big picture impacts. But if there's specific impacts, I'd encourage everybody to comment on the rules and then also let us know, because that can help us also articulate comments as well.
Well, I think all we would ask is and you folks here at TCEQ see the interrelatedness.
Yeah.
That's a word. The EPA is much larger. They may be in their different silos that they're focused just on solid waste. I'm sure they probably have a task force that goes across that these are, all interrelated, I would hope, because that's just the issue is, how we deal with that. But okay. So the only other question I have, and this is for the advisory council. So this is going to be an ongoing topic for the next few years, unfortunately, probably. How do we want to handle this as an advisory council of just staying informed? I'm not saying, we meet 4 times a year. I'm not saying we should every quarter have an update. Maybe we should, I don't know, but what level of frequency to stay informed on this and keep this in front of this council? Because I think this is a huge issue. So I'm just opening it up for suggestions.
But how about if we just continue to put Charlie on the spot, maybe in terms of just requesting in her update at each meeting that she provide a briefing. And then if there are specific issues that we need to further consider in further depth, just maybe let us know what those would be in advance so we can be prepared, but just to include it as part of our ongoing agenda. But Charlie, if there ever would be something that on a quicker turnaround basis, if you would need to convene or get input from our group to, I think we would all want to have the flexibility to support TCEQ. And
okay, we can definitely, I'll have staff keep up of things they hear from EPA or other sources on PFAS that we'll present at this meeting of here's different things going on. And then if there's anything with a quick turnaround, we'll definitely share it quicker.
Charlie, you mentioned that you have someone on your staff who is very knowledgeable.
Yep. Yes.
Skipping the frequency question, I would personally enjoy a short presentation from them. I know they could talk for 5 days, but just
okay. Give us a little bit of time. We'll put something together. What topics do you want to specifically about the proposed rulemakings? Because again, we're kind of in the same. There has been the wastewater, but there hasn't been a lot on the waste side on PFAS. So talk these proposed rulemakings, talk PFAS and
Well, let me
I struggle
let me ask,
Yeah.
for part of this, just again, reading what I'm reading right now, even if it's related to some of the treatment technologies on the water and wastewater side, I was reading an article yesterday, and I mean, they had a range you could drive a truck through, or I think it was $10 to $150 per 1,000 gallons. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Okay.
And but if there's an advancement on technology that is helping either on the water side, and to me, I'll defer on for the water guys. I always see a bigger issue on the wastewater side with all the biosolids, but there's still an issue on the water side. But to the extent there are technologies on that side that are being implemented, that would be beneficial for the landfills.
We can definitely do that. We'll look at the interim guidance and can definitely talk about those 3 disposal methods. I just want to make sure, because I don't want, again, we're not at our level, we're not policies. I don't want to say this is the way we're going, but we can definitely talk about the interim guidance. We can talk about where these proposed rulemakings are impacting. So there'll be enough to talk about.
I think I view it right now as an educational presentation.
Okay.
Thing that we kind of can wrap our arms. I suspect we have a wide range of understanding of the situation. And if the time would ever occur that you would need advice, we wouldn't have to start from square one.
Okay.
Is Jeff on the water wastewater side for North Texas? I'm sure at your board level, this has percolated up now on this, because it hits all 3 of your service lines.
Yep. Yes, it has. So we're starting to figure out what do we do for treatment, assuming we have some, now that it dropped yesterday, the rules now we have something we can focus on, at least on the water side.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, give us about a month to read through the interim guidance. And then we can look at scheduling April, May, June, July. The next meeting's in July? Okay. Something late June, and then we can invite y'all here, and then you can invite any of your anybody from your company as well, and we can hold a kind of a webinar, not a webinar, but interaction meeting with questions and answers.
Sure. No, that's great. Appreciate it. Any other questions from the advisory council folks maybe that are online for Charlie? Otherwise, we'll move on. Okay. All right. Well, moving on then to the MSW permit section update. Megan, you want to give us an update, please?
Yes. Also, there will be a talk on PFAS at Trade Fair. Tuesday, May 14th, 10:30 a.m. That's PFAS data regulations and methods.
And that's an external presentation.
Yeah. So there may be more.
Okay. Yeah. So there are.
Just curious, who's doing that presentation? Does it say?
Eurofins Environment Testing of America.
Probably going to be lab related.
Yeah. So that's lab related. Sorry.
Yeah, no point.
Which of the 6,000 PFAS chemicals do you test for?
Yeah.
I think this is the one that Kevin Ward from TRA went off on, is like, we can't even test for this stuff right now, given our current.
Yeah. And then our toxicology division is giving a presentation on Tuesday as well in the afternoon. So health effects and regulatory updates.
And do either of those count for continuing education for municipal solid waste licenses? Which they don't. Is there any way that we could petition to have a last minute change and have that thrown in there?
Let us look at that. I don't know the answer to that, so we can look at it. And then water is also doing a talk on Wednesday morning on the PFAS rule, including standards, sampling, and water and treatment requirements. So that's water.
Great. Thank you.
And we'll look at the education requirements. I believe they have a booth there on training we'll look.
It's a little bit of a problem in my throat. It's something
Yeah.
that just started a couple of years ago.
Okay.
It used to be if you went to any presentation at the trade fair, you could use it for your continuing education. They started
Yes.
boxing them in, and which is okay. I understand the general concept of that, but sometimes there's a pretty broad topic that is of interest to a whole lot of people.
Right.
It'd be nice if they just had a universal stamp.
Okay, we can look at it.
So good for anybody.
All right. Well, moving on to some updates from MSW. So we still have 2 vacancies, one engineer and one geoscientist. We're working to fill those positions. But otherwise, we have, I think, 8 new staff started in the past 6 to 9 months, some more recent than others. So we're training folks fast. We understand the need to get people up to speed so we can continue meeting, timeframes and getting good decisions, sound decisions made on applications. But things are going smoothly as far as our new staff. For our major applications, we have 24 permits under review and 6 registrations, pretty much in line with every other quarter. We do have some interesting activities going on in the section. Last week, we actually tried a new public meeting format. We had member of the public request a public meeting on a permit. And so we thought this would be a good time to try a town hall Q&A. So if you're familiar with our public meetings, there's usually an informal comment period or Q&A period and then a formal comment period. And typically how the informal part was done was the TCQ and applicant are on a stage, there's a microphone and one at a time. Members of the public come and ask questions and we field those questions. And this time we took a different approach. It was a smaller meeting and we actually were on the same level as the public, not up on a stage, no microphones. And we got to have more one-on-one interaction with members of the public. As I mentioned, this was a smaller group. It was a really good group to try this new format out. And we saw a lot of benefits. We could deep dive a little bit more into the rules, into what the application included, what the facility was proposing, as well as we had our region office staff there, and they talked about the inspection process or investigation process. So I'd say overall it was well received. The applicant also seemed to benefit from this approach because they got to talk to their potential new neighbors. So that was a good experience. And we are looking at some items to consider in the future if we're going to move forward with this. And one is for larger groups, having tables set up that are clearly TCQ permits, TCQ regional office, and then the applicant. In this format, we were a little more loose where we were all kind of walking up and seeing what questions people had. But with a larger group, we could see, we need to keep the line moving and making sure everyone has a chance to get their questions answered. Also, one thing that we saw was a benefit, I think most applicants do this typically, is having some sort of a visual of the facility, typically on like a poster board that shows a proposed facility layout, and then a high level overview of what the facility will do, how they're going to handle different wastes that come in. And this is really helpful because we all had something to look at and say, okay, you're worried about this, well, you can see on this part of the facility map, blah, 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 blah. So we found that to be very helpful to members of the public to get a really firm grasp of what's being proposed for the facility. So we'll keep looking for other ways to try that out, but I'm going to see if anyone had any questions about the Q&A. And then after that, we did have the formal process. That didn't change. TCQ applicant sat at tables. Members of the public came to the microphone, spoke into the microphone. We recorded their comments, did not provide a oral response, but we will provide a written response. So there was no change on that part. All right.
So Megan, will that be the thought going forward, is that it would be the informal plus the more traditional formal?
That's what we're looking at. We're still going to see like when does it make the most sense. It's going to be a learning process. It may not work out the same if it's 500 people who want to ask questions at a meeting. But then again, we may, as we kind of grow and get into this process, we may find that there's a way to manage that successfully so the public can benefit from the meeting. And that's really what we our goal is to be able to answer those questions and get that time to address those. So.
And and part of the reason why is we wanted to really answer the questions people actually have, the genuine questions. And I think this format helps a lot, that if somebody really does have a question they want answered, they're able to do that. They're able to come up here and ask it. With the microphone, the Q&A portion with the microphone, it's tough. There were a lot of questions that the people were venting or not actually wanting an answer to. And so those are better served in the formal comment period. So we're trying to see if there's really, well, going into all of this, the agency was very concerned about, we must still provide a venue to answer people's questions. And so I think we're able to do that. And we'll see in a better way of we're actually answering the genuine questions that people want to know about the facility. How do they do the odor control plan? How do they submit complaints? What's in the plan? So I think we're heading in the right direction, but we still, like Megan said, we'll need to try it out with a larger group.
So was that just kind of in response to the sunset report, and how can you do that a little better or what have you?
It's been something we've been discussing for a while, and then was able, as part of the sunset, to try it out.
Great. That sounds like a good idea.
So next up, we have an upcoming webinar on MSW data sources. This is on May 8th from 11 to 12, and we do have a registration link available. We sent an announcement in the last Gov Delivery newsletter that I believe went out last week, recently, Monday, sometime it went out. So it's in there, and it's also posted on the MSW webpage. So definitely check that out. We have a lot of good data sources to go over.
So is that primarily going to be talking about like the data that's online that's available? And okay, great.
Megan, do you know it's going to be recorded or not?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Yes.
I'm going to be able to.
It'll be recorded.
That's a really good point. Yeah, that's helpful if people can't make that available.
We may ask that we may not put it up on the page anywhere. We'll see about YouTube. We'll see if we want to share it on YouTube. But if you email us, we'll always figure a way to just send you the recording.
Yes, and you might be able to share it to look up to the thing.
Yeah. So that'll require putting it on YouTube probably. So we'll see how it goes. But definitely for y'all, if you email us, we'll send you a copy.
Thank you.
All right, and then along similar lines, we're preparing for trade fair, and that's May 14th and 15th at the Austin Convention Center. And we just had announcements on that as well in the latest newsletter with a list of our presentations. So also as a reminder, we had a deadline for MSWRRAC members to request the passes by April 4th, but if you tell us today, we can still get you in if you want to pass to trade fair. So please let us know after the meeting.
We have a form that you have to fill out. So let me know and I can get you the form.
I filled mine out.
Did you send it to me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So along the lines of the sunset implementation, we're working on posting applications online. So as discussed in previous meetings, TCQ is going to start posting major applications online. And this means that the applicant will no longer have to host URLs with applications, revisions, for applications and revisions. So what we're going to post is administratively complete versions, major revisions, like interview responses, and technically complete applications. So again, this is to provide that transparency to the public. So there's going to be a uniform format for every application that's going to cover the different notices we require, plain language summaries, and then these different versions of the application. So we're working on getting our webpage and processes in place so we can have a smooth transition. We're looking to start this in June 2024. So we're working fast to get that going. But I do have a question for MSWRRAC members. How difficult is it for the applicant/consultants to create a PDF that is technically complete, which just means it incorporates all those revisions and it's one final approved document? Are y'all familiar with the tools like merging and editing pages in Adobe? What's your experience of that?
Lots.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of the world that we live in. So, yeah, I think for TCQ to place that requirement on the consultants should be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's the clean version. Like you don't want to see the
Right.
red line modifications to get you there. Okay. Yeah.
How about online? Any?
I agree. I think, we try to maintain a current clean version throughout the entire process. It depends on how many comments there are as far as what the level of effort is. But yeah, we always try to do that because it's to our clients, it's a deliverable at the end. So you make sure that they have a good copy of what they're being held to.
Yeah, I was just going to repeat what Frank just said.
We lost you again, Risa.
Hold on a second.
Okay.
See if I can turn the echo off. Is that better?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I was just going to say exactly what Frank said.
Not recent.
For our clients to have in their files anyway. So
Okay.
posting that shouldn't be a big issue.
That's all I had.
Real quick question. I don't want detail, but since I'm a finance person, when you talk, I think you said you had 24 permits in the house or something. Generally, like what are those? Are those amendments or for additional space going vertical? I mean, like what kind of stuff?
Yeah, it really covers quite a range. So we do have some vertical expansions, lateral, a combination of both at our house. Limited scope amendments, like changing operating hours, waste acceptance hours is a limited scope amendment, so we count those. New permits, we have typically 1 to 3 go in at any time. Those are a little bit less common, but still regular occurrences. I think what else we have for.
No, that's helpful.
Oh, yes. And then we do have subchapter T, that's developments over a closed landfill. Those are becoming significantly more common.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Megan? Okay. Megan, thank you. Okay. Up next, we've got the business and program services section update, primarily tied to the Swiffer grant update.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Santos Olivares with the Business and Program Services section. Swiffer, we've been moving along. Right now, we're kind of at our administrative stage. We're working on the contracts, on the 5 contracts that we'll be that we'll be having with the 5 different COGs. They've pretty much have made it through our legal and procurements reviews, and so we're hoping to wrap those up here in the next couple of weeks and get that first draft out to the 5 COGs that are working on the grants. We will be scheduling a conference call with them to just go over the subtle differences between our state contracts and then this contract that has state provisions, but also federal provisions, since the SWIPR is federal funding. So, and we are on track to get the contract signed and executed before the end of this fiscal year. So I know that was one of the suggestions or requests from one of our previous MSWRRAC meetings to get it done as soon as we could, at least within this fiscal year. So we're still on track for that and still looking to have those implemented as soon as we can so that the projects can get going. So that's really all I have for Swiffer. One other thing is that we did get in late February, we did get 2 applications for membership to the MSWRRAC. Both were for a elected official from a municipality with a population of less than 25,000. And so we will be going to the commission agenda tomorrow for action on this. So we could be up to 16 members here at our next meeting. So with that, we'll be up to 16 if it gets approved, and we still have a couple of vacancies. One for a elected official from a municipality with a population of 750,000 or greater, and another one elected official from a municipality with a population of 100,000 but less than 750,000. So again, 2 from the more bigger municipalities that we still have open. But we're still working again with TARC, the Texas Association of Regional Councils, with each of our COGs individually and getting out the word for these openings. And we continue to work with Gov Delivery and just about anybody that we can to get those 2 positions filled. So that's the update that I have. Anybody have any questions?
Only thing I'll mention, appreciate that. I mean, and you might have already tried them, but reaching out to Texas Municipal League, and I don't know if you can do a posting there, but you just always have a problem with that largest city. So see.
That's actually
and we have. Oh, go ahead, Megan.
I was gonna say that's actually where this position got filled from. We did.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, so we're pulling all the stops, trying to get as much of the word out there. And again, last June when we or last April when we provided a notice that we were open for nominations, we left the nomination period open. And so now anytime we get applications where the individual does meet those the requirements, the eligibility requirements, we do move it forward and again try to fill the position. So it's an ongoing process for us that we keep open and we keep really reaching out to folks as best we can.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, getting an update on House Bill 3060 bill implementation, and not even sure what the second one is.
Very small quantity.
Thank you. Thank you, Chuck. Very small quantity generators and manifest updates.
Can you talk from there?
Do you have slides?
Oh, no slides. Do you want me to go back?
No, you can.
Okay. That. Sorry, Betty. Oh, no worries. I'm just gonna do a little, what do they call that chair, the bake sale chair thing? Musical chairs were the, whatever, anyway. Okay. Good morning, everyone. So yes, I'm gonna update you on the rural project that I'm the project manager for. I've spoken with you previously, and I have some new information to share. And then, of course, the very small quantity generator and manifest updates. So I'm going to start with the House Bill 3060 project, part of the project. We are just about to wrap up the proposal phase of this rule project, which means that we will be taking the rule to the commissioner's agenda and presenting it to the commissioners. And there they will be required to vote on whether we are approved to propose the rule in the Texas Register. So I'm going to give you some dates just to give you a target of what's happening and when. The first date is April 19th. That is when the proposed rules will be published on the Commissioner's Agenda website. And that is the first time the whole rule package will be available to the public to read and review and to determine if they would like to bring any comments to the Commissioner's Agenda. And the Commissioner's Agenda is May 10th.
If the commissioners approve it for proposal, then the rules will be published in the May 24th Texas Register edition. In addition to the proposed rules on May 24th, they will also post the details on how to participate in our public hearing for this rulemaking. May 24th is also the beginning of the 30-day comment period. So May 24th is an important date. June 20th, we have our hybrid public hearing scheduled for this rule process. And what this hearing looks like is that we also have a 30-minute question and answer session. And that's followed by a formal comment period that opens, and we ask for formal oral comments at this meeting. We do not offer any response at that time, so it's very similar to the public hearings that you have for permits. So that's June 20th. And then the comment period will close June 24th. That's going to close out our in between the proposal and adoption phases. Between June and October, we're going to continue drafting, finalizing the rule documents, the rule language. We will draft our response to comments, and then we'll have to go through the same process that we've gone through for proposal, which requires a bunch of reviews, internal reviews. And then we're planning for adoption agenda in October of this year. Does someone have a question online or?
I do actually. Sorry.
Okay. No problem.
Rich, isn't this the bill that includes the requirement to identify a third party on the mass balance? Are you, okay. Where are you on that? If you've made any progress at all?
Yes, so I wanted to just go through the dates because I figured that was going to be the question in the back of your head, but I wanted to recap what the contents of the rule are. Okay. So I'll go into that next. I'm done with the milestone part. No problem. Thank you. So just to recap what's in the rule project, and now that we've had a chance to revise and all the rules and put them into a proposed rule document, I have more information about what is actually in the rule. The changes in the rule. So of course we are implementing House Bill 3060 in this rule project. In Chapter 330, it's mostly in the definitions section, 330.3. We do have some minor changes in 330.13G related to, and that's more the advanced recycling portions of the bill. The stuff that you were asking about, that's the mass balance, the third-party certification systems for mass balance, those have all been adopted into the Chapter 328. And we've created a new subchapter we're proposing a new subchapter for Chapter 328, where we will identify we have definitions for those terms, third-party balance, third-party certification system, and mass balance attribution. Our approach for addressing the third-party certification systems is to not put the names of the facilities in the rule, but rather to maintain a list of them, because this is a field that's evolving and changing very quickly. And so rather than having to go through a rule change frequently in that subchapter, we've taken the approach of maintaining that information. Does that address your question or?
Yes, it does. But what do you, so you're not necessarily going to certify a third party, you're just going to maintain a list of people that, or companies or organizations that do the certifications. Is that what I understand?
Right, that's correct. The way the statute was written, we were required to identify them in rule. And we don't do any of the certification ourselves. The certification systems themselves must meet the requirements of the rule. And there are some restrictions. For example, the biggest one I can say is that they're not allowing fuel, like the use of fuels or waste to energy processes for these terms. They don't meet the terms. So that's not something that we will verify, that the third-party certification system does not allow that, but it would not be allowed under the statute, if that makes sense. Did you have more to? Okay. So that's the House Bill 3060 implementation. We are also implementing rule changes in 335 for House Bill 3060. And then, so the other thing that we are doing in Chapter 330 is we are making some minor revisions to Section 330.57. That's the application requirements. Now, as Megan mentioned in her update, of course, we're going through all of this process to implement the sunset requirement that the state TCQ now has to post the applications online. That means that the requirement for the facilities to post their application on their own website or on a third-party website is eliminated. So we will be replacing that requirement. So we had to make some changes in 330.57 to conform with that new requirement. And then we are correcting, we decided to use this time to correct outdated rule citations or references. And specifically, two of those that we wanted to just discuss with you today are the very small quantity generator update and the manifest update. So before I move on to that, does anyone have any questions yet online or in the room? Okay. Okay, so also, as Charlie mentioned previously, with our industrial and hazardous waste program, our TCQ does maintain an authorized, a RCRA authorized program. So that means that we are able to adopt the rules that the federal or the EPA RCRA rule changes. We are able to adopt them and they become effective in the state even prior to us receiving final authorization, because we are an authorized program. So I wanted to explain that difference, but we are required in most cases, particularly when a program is more stringent, to adopt the changes. And we do adopt most changes because we need to be consistent with the rest of the nation. So we did update. So the first major update to the RCRA program in many years was the hazardous waste generator improvements rule. They made a lot of changes that I'm not going to go through today. But in addition to eliminating the term conditionally exempt small quantity generator, the CSQUIG that everyone is familiar with, they replaced that term with a very small quantity generator. That term is still the same. It still means the same thing, that they must generate less than 1 kilogram of acute hazardous waste or less than 100 kilograms of non-acute hazardous waste in a month, in a calendar month. But they have also created this new program called the episodic generation program that allows a very small quantity generator to episodically generate volumes of waste, of hazardous waste over that amount and not have to change their generator classification. So they don't have to become and treat the waste as a small quantity generator or a large quantity generator under this episodic generation program. You have a question?
I'll show my ignorance. What's that word mean?
What?
Episodically.
Episodic. Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you for asking.
Yeah.
So what that means is that it's primarily for, so a very small quantity generator generates very small amounts of waste, except for a time when they're going to do a tank clean out, for example. and they need to generate a bunch of waste during that short period of time. And so this new program under the federal rules allows them to petition or to be authorized for one episodic generation event per calendar year. And during that event, they have to follow some requirements, and a couple of those requirements are important to you all.
Thanks.
So they have to follow some special requirements, but it means that they have 60 days to get that waste and dispose of it off site. But when they dispose of it, they have to manifest it, and they have to send it to a RCRA designated facility. So that's a different thing where they're still considered a very small quantity generator, you know, for the purposes of their generator category, but they won't be allowed to submit that waste to a landfill. So that's the real significant thing that was identified in this rulemaking, is that it wasn't just a quick swap out of the term conditionally exempt small quantity generator for very small quantity generator. We also had to make this distinction that for your purposes, that waste, episodic waste, would not be allowed to go to a landfill. It's going to be regulated waste, just as if they also busted their limits on a regular month, which can still happen.
And these rule changes are in effect when?
They're already in effect.
Since when?
So in Texas, they've been effective since February 3rd of 2022.
As part of the 335 rule changes.
Yes. So that was made in the industrial hazardous waste. Now, there's other details about that program. They can petition for a second one per year, and that's because of any event of like a natural disaster or something like that, a storm that generates a large amount of waste that they need to be responsible for. So that's the main thing about the very small quantity generator, is you're going to see some language when you get to the preamble, and you're going to say, why are we going to that? That's the main reason. Does anyone have any questions about the very small quantity generators or? Okay. And so the next thing was about the waste manifest. Again, the federal rules have been changing over time for the waste manifest, the hazardous waste. They call it the Uniform Hazardous Waste Manifest. That's the name of the shipping document that usually accompanies hazardous waste. They have been making some changes to that program over time. They introduced the electronic manifest, and with the electronic manifest, they introduced fees associated with the manifest. And so the first thing I wanted to say is that the receiving facility is the facility that terminates the Uniform Hazardous Waste Manifest. So they are considered a designated facility under RCRA, and they are also considered a user of the electronic manifest system. And the reason why I'm telling you, these are definitions that are defined in Chapter 335 in the definitions section 335.1. The EPA is going to charge users user fees for the facilities that receive the waste. The amount is based on how they submit the manifest and whether that's electronic, fully electronic, or I think there's like data input that you can do. And you can also scan and send in an electronic copy of a paper copy. They no longer allow a paper copy of the manifest as of June 30th, 2021. And the real thing that came out, so I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of that in this room, because you're not usually dealing with hazardous waste, but when you're dealing with these other facilities that may have to have a hazardous waste, that's where it comes into play. And the other thing that happened is that, so Texas has always, or has required the Uniform Hazardous Waste Manifest to accompany Class 1 industrial waste. And when we adopted those revisions for the electronic manifest system, they also were applied to Class 1 industrial wastes. And so that's the significance, is we wanted to make sure that it was clear in the Chapter 330 rules where to go and find those requirements. If you are an MSW facility that is terminating a manifest, we just gave you some new citations in Chapter 335 to show you where those updates have happened. But the updates, again, have already happened at the federal level. And the the manifest system is actually a different kind of schema that because it's required nationwide in all 50 states. It doesn't matter whether it's less or more stringent. It's just required for everyone across the board. So that one actually has been in effect for a while. Does anyone have any questions about that?
So again, it's we're catching up the MSW rules.
Yes.
That the Chapter 335 rules for the Class 1 manifest were already in place since 2001 or 2021.
Yes.
Yeah, so those were already in place. It's just when we went through and looked at the MSW rules, we realized that section on manifest for Class 1 was very outdated. So we're catching it up to what is required what's already required in 335.
While you're looking at 330, I just checked because we still have definitions for conditionally exempt generator waste, but no definitions for very small quantity generator in 330. And we're still writing permits.
That's
waste acceptance using C-SQUIG and B-SQUIG.
We'll check the permit. We'll make sure to update the permits as well.
So that's in the proposed rule.
Okay.
And just to make it clear, we understand that it's gonna take time for that replacement of those terms. So the term C-SQUIG has not been struck from the definitions at this point.
Right.
And it's specifically, we retained that definition and modified it to make it clear that if you see that term, go look at very small quantity generator. And that's just to help the users of the rules.
And in terms of the existing 180 some permits that are out there, will that change just be automatic? They don't have to come in and do a modification to their accepted waste strength?
No, they will not.
Right. And that's all I had. If no one has any other questions. Oh, I see there's someone on.
There is someone online. Yeah, it's a public member, so we'll wait till the end of the meeting.
Okay.
I think if you answered Chuck's questions, you're good.
Okay.
Thank you. Good job, Chuck. All right, thank you. Okay. The next item, and I didn't have anything formal. I was just, for anyone that was here that just wanted to share it with the council. We did have the Tech-SWANA conference last week in San Antonio. I know Scott was there, Jeff, Megan, myself, some others. Well attended, good sessions, a lot of vendors there, so that was good. But anybody have any comments they wanted to add or anything?
The vendors with PFAS treatment, they do and are wanting others to do too.
Were they magic wands and black boxes or is it something else?
No, I would say no, but I still don't have a good feel for what do you do with the residual treatment that's been concentrated.
Yeah, like if you use activated carbon, and what do you do with the activated carbon?
Or there was like a foam fractionization. So like, what do you do with that concentrate? Where does it go? I don't know. I don't have answers for that. Suggestions. It's just interesting how this is all going to evolve.
Okay. I'll mention, like you said, Dave, it was very well attended. And in fact, I think it was more than 400 people were there. So I don't know if it was an official record, but it seems like it was bigger than my 23 plus years of going to Tech-SWANA conferences. And then next year we'll be here in Austin at the Palmer Event Center. I think it's going to be, again, is it April? Do you remember, Jeff?
No, I don't.
I think it's in the
Yes, I think toward the end of April.
Okay.
Yes.
So still a year out, but never too early to start thinking about that.
All right. We're just a little behind. Okay, so yes.
Before we go forward, can we do one more roll call? Just
Oh, you bet.
came in late. Scott Trebus. Jennifer Lutz.
Present.
Okay. Judge Hayden. Ralph Gutierrez. Okay. You.
Thank you, Anna. Okay, so this is really more just in wrapping up then. We have to get an approval of the January 11th, 2024 meeting highlights. Those were provided to you in your packets. So if I could get I've got a motion to approve. Second. All right. All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. Good. Okay, they're opposed, approved. Let's see, we don't have any action items or Q&A. And so the final thing is if there are any public comments.
Jennifer, she messaged just a general, I believe she was talking about the upcoming webinar, the data sources, and what email address would that invitation have come from? Have we sent that out yet?
So we sent it, it would be the TCQ Gov Delivery email. So if you're not signed up for the MSW newsletter, we can share a link in the chat so you can select not just MSW, but any other TCQ program you want to hear from. It's also going to be posted on our MSW webpage. If you just on like the main page, if you put in a search engine TCQ MSW permits, we'll have a registration link posted on there.
We did share that link to the newsletter. And then we had one public comment typed out. Find it real quick. From Heather Hansen. She said, if y'all hold a webinar / meeting on PFAS outside of the regular MSWRRAC meetings, will it be open for the public or posted on the MSWRRAC webpage?
We'll discuss that. My initial inclination is probably not, but look, I'll do a review of what the content is and make a decision from there.
Great. Megan, would you, for that information webinar, could you send that to the advisory council members? I remember getting my solid waste message from TCEQ and I might have skimmed it and deleted it. So
Print on the brain.
yeah, that's what I should be doing.
Recycle paper.
Yeah. Anyhow, if you could send that out, thank you.
We didn't have that hand raised, so if the person who raised their hand wants to raise that again, and I can give access, or anybody else who wants to raise a hand, I can give you access to your microphone.
If there's anybody on the phone who wants to speak, you can press *6 or 5, sorry, *5 to raise your hand.
Okay, I think they're not there. So with that, I appreciate everyone attending in person and virtually. Our next meeting will be July 11th. So plan your summer vacations around it. You won't want to miss it. And thank you for everyone's time, and can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right. Thank you.